Let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of, what is today, February the 10th? 11th. Damn, I'm getting old. To order. First time, I probably need a roll call. So let's do like the other boards do and announce ourselves. Evan, if I could get you to start and we'll just come this way.
Evan Sana, present.
Raylan Williams, present.
Dave Fackler, present.
Aaron Davis, present.
Shireen Lerner, present.
Kiyomi Kuroka here.
And Christine and Kathleen, if you'd announce yourselves.
Sure. Kathleen Leont, present.
Christy Melcher, present.
Great, thank you. Mariah Justice, the chair, is tied up at work and will be absent, as will Zach Taylor, Zach Lester. He's sick today, so he will not be here. Brian Levesque is going to try to sit in for it. I'm sure you'll do a great job. Okay, next on the agenda, native land acknowledgement. And Raylene, if you would announce that, I'd appreciate it.
So we acknowledge that Tempe lies in the ancestral land of the native peoples who have lived here since time immemorial. The ancestral land of the O'odham and Pipash stretches far beyond the boundaries of our city. The landscape is sacred to them, embodying cultural values that are integral to their identity and way of life. The O'odham and Pipash continue to maintain a deep spiritual connection to this land. We embrace the responsibility of caring for these places and vow to uphold this commitment in all our actions.
Thank you, Raylene. Next on the agenda, consideration of minutes. Historic Preservation Meeting, January 14th, 26, regular meeting. Do have any changes or additions to the minutes, please? Raylene? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. 4, 5, and 6 took the month off, so let's get into 7. Updates and presentations. Looks like Jacob Payne's here to talk to us about Affordable Housing Development Bonus Program. Ryan's in that as well.
Good evening, Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Ryan Levesque, Deputy Director in the Planning Division. Here with me, Jacob Payne, Principal Planner. We've been on tour doing the updates or providing outreach and feedback on the draft concept of an Affordable Housing Development Bonus Program. And it's been requested by the Commission to provide this presentation as well. What we'll be going over, just very quickly. Boy, there it goes.
Are you clicked in on the PowerPoint?
Oh, there you go. So we'll be going over just some little background and direction on how we got to this point. A little overview about how the bonus program is intended to work. The draft proposal in terms of some of its proposed regulations, and then the project process timeline of where we're at right now. And then we'll be able to open it up for questions and answers to you all about the program further. So without further ado, Jacob.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Historic Preservation Commission, for giving us a little bit of time to share this with you and get some feedback. Before we get into the details of what exactly this affordable housing bonus program looks like, I wanted to share some information to orient us and help us understand why this proposal is being put forth. So a little bit of history about what has been going on in the city of Tempe in the realm of affordable housing. Back in 2019, our Community Health and Human Services Department, through their housing division, adopted an affordable housing strategy plan. So this document contains concepts, objectives, and goals in the realm of affordable housing and kind of lays out framework for some strategies as to how we can increase our supply. Around the same time, there was an effort known as, it was a bigger part of a project, but there was a portion of that that was a proposal for a development bonus program, similar into what we'll talk about today, but a little bit different in that the proposal that we had back in 2019 was a little bit more multifaceted, included bonuses for things like sustainability initiatives, public open space, among things like affordable housing. Ultimately, that program did not go through for fruition, so it stalled out. But a couple years later, the city did our update to our general plan, and one of the elements within that document relates to housing. So additional objectives, strategies, and goals in the realm of housing came forward from that document. And a little bit more recently, we've seen a lot of direction from the state legislature as far as how municipalities should be addressing and handling issues related to affordable housing and limited housing supply. And all of this, of course, is a focus on what we've been experiencing in Tempe and in Arizona at large as the rising cost of housing. So a little bit of statistics. The next two slides are going to be some charts that come from a housing inventory that was done in 2024. So this chart is showing the percentages of rental households and homeowner households that are considered cost burdened or severely cost burdened. So a household is considered burdened if they're spending more than 30% of their income towards housing, and considered severely burdened if they're spending
It's 50%.
Yeah, more than 50% of their income towards housing. So the chart on the left relates to those households in Tempe that rent. So for the entire city, the amount of renters that are either burdened or severely burdened totals to 51%. And then the chart on the right for homeowners, that total 23%, either being burdened or severely burdened. The second set of charts, these relate to which percentages of our housing stock are considered affordable. So the bar on these charts that corresponds to Tempe is the one that's all the way on the left. And then we're compared to Maricopa County as a whole, and then 4 selected cities of similar size and demographic. So the way to read these charts is look at the color. So on that top one, that's related to renter affordability. So for a prospective renter in a family that's making 80% of the median family income in Tempe, 77% of rental units in the city would be considered affordable, meaning that they would be spending less than 30% of their income towards housing. And then the yellow bar would correspond to households making 50% of the median income, and the purple one representing those making 30% of the median income. So you can see that for the 80% range, 77 is pretty comparable with Maricopa County, but still not quite to some of those peer cities that we are compared ourselves to. And then where we can really see some of that difference is with those ranges of the 50% median income and the 30%. The lower chart is showing the same information, but this time for sale products, so homes, condos, townhouses. The big difference with that chart on the bottom is that the orange bar is actually corresponding to families making 120% of the median income. So even with 120% of the median family income, for someone looking to purchase a home in Tempe, only 39% of our housing stock would be considered affordable. Next slide. And then as one last preface before we jump into a little bit more details, Arizona is one of the few states in the country where we are prohibited from doing what's known as inclusionary zoning. So per Arizona revised statute, we're not allowed to condition or require that private development include affordable housing. However, the same statute that prohibits us from requiring it allows cities and towns to develop bonus or incentive programs in order to come up with ways to get affordable units into housing development. So some of the things that city's been working on already as it relates to affordable housing. Back in 2021, we have the program started, the Hometown for All. Those are monetary contributions that are voluntary by private development that goes towards acquisition and operation of affordable housing units in the city. We have our Apache redevelopment area, where if a development is offering 10 to 15% of their project to be workforce housing units, they can get up to 50% rebate on development fees. And then these two at the bottom are recent changes to our zoning and development code to comply with state law, but they provide us options for requirements of affordable units. So those being our accessory dwelling unit code, as well as our adaptive reuse of commercial and office buildings for multifamily. So where this is coming from, as I mentioned, we had a proposal in a different iteration of a development bonus program. And following some direction from the city council to revisit the idea of a development bonus program, but make it more simple and kind of hone in on a key issue, and that one being affordable housing. So we came up with the concept for this, brought it forward to the city council, and got direction to move forward with fleshing out the proposal that you're about to see. So before I hand it over to Ryan to go into the details, just a overview and the most simple terms of what a development bonus program is. It is a voluntary process in which developers are providing some kind of public benefit and in return are receiving additional development standards, whether that be in the form of residential density, extra floor space, or building height. And that goes beyond what they would be allowed to do with their current zoning. So these two graphics at the bottom kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. They're getting extra height, extra floor area, and more density. But in both diagrams, you can see that some of those units are shaded or a different color, meaning that they're being dedicated as affordable. And that's the public benefit that's in return for the bonus that they're getting. With that, I'll hand it over to Ryan and he'll share some of the details of the proposal.
Thank you, Jacob. So the bonus program we are proposing in the draft form is a form of an overlay district. It's an opt-in process that has to go through city council to achieve this ordinance program. The development bonus program can be applied citywide. It's subject to compliance with our Tempe general plan as the basis for where the bonuses can come into play. Again, as mentioned before, it's a voluntary program. Developers can choose this option, or they can choose the standard route of a rezoning process that may yield a different type of density or density without requiring dedicated affordable housing. No, same slide. It's incorporated in the zoning development code by way of a code text amendment in the draft language we have proposed here. It's intended to be an administrative process with the applicants in order to save time, cost, and uncertainties in the rezoning outcome process. So the guaranteed of height, density yields their commitment to providing affordable housing within their program. Developers still can currently utilize the zoning map amendment process. There's PADs. They don't have to comply with the general plan. Then that standard process would require the public hearing, outreach, and notification that you've seen in some of those standard rezoning processes. So we also looked at simplifying the formula for the process, make it easier to understand what the outcome is in return for providing the affordable housing, and have basically a nexus between what percentage of housing and what ranges of densities would be allowed per the zoning district. We're looking specifically at additional density height and reduction in parking requirements as the basis for the development standard incentives. Next slide. Bonus program exemption. So this is an important topic slide that we put in here for you all. The bonus density program as it relates to general plan, land use and densities. So if you're looking at the cultural resource areas, those areas would not be applicable to density increases because the cultural resource identifies that the most appropriate density is the existing underlying zoning. So in that respect, there is no bump in difference between the underlying zoning and what the general plan projects. Also, we've excluded single family zoning properties not being eligible for the program. We also have listed in there that the properties either on the local Tempe Historic Register or the National Register are also exempted from the bonus program. So this chart here, which is in the draft plan, kind of identifies the affordable housing requirements for the program. We're looking for, at this time, 3 different levels of medium income, area median income from the project, either up to 50% AMI, 65% AMI, or up to 80% AMI. We have noticed, that there's a quite amount of housing stock in Tempe within above 80% to 120 AMI, so we're trying to avoid those higher levels. So what the program does is it takes the standard density that's allowed with the site, say it allows today 25 dwellings per acre, compared to the additional bonus density that's applied, say it's 45 dwellings per acre. So that yields an additional 20 units that can be allowed for the project. And then based on the area median income ranges of affordability, they'll either dedicate 25%, 50%, or 75% of those gained units, not the total project units, but the gained units that are being received as a result of the density, which yields the total required affordable units for the project. This here shows an example of the types of income rent limits that we're looking to achieve. On the right here is the identified fair market rents for 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms in the Phoenix Mesa metropolitan area. And of those rents, we can see reductions anywhere from $841 a month rent for a 1 bedroom to reduction of down to $1,343 based on that 1,679 number. So you can see the ranges and differences in the densities that the units would have afford some savings, cost savings to the renters that were applicable to those specific units. And those numbers would get updated on an annual basis. So it's they'll constantly change. We have a HUD published market for every fiscal year, and those will get updated accordingly. Next slide. So the bonus program in a nutshell is dedicating a percentage of affordable housing units comply with this map, which is our general plan 2050 map. In return, the project receives greater density heights, reductions in parking, and in return, Tempe receives a guaranteed affordable housing for a term of 30 years. Next slide. So to go in more depth of what that commitment means, a developer will have to sign a covenant with the city that guarantees those units of affordability for 30 years. Within the covenants, we want to ensure that the affordability will be met through that program and processes. We're working closely with our Tempe Community Health and Human Services Department to be a verifier of that process. They're providing us some good comments and feedbacks about what we should lay out in terms of the obligations and commitment for the developers to participate in the process. There's a need to have an annual self-reporting and audit of the units that are identified for affordability and the residents that are qualified that are within those units. And then on an annual basis, the city will verify compliance with the commitment to the program. This here shows a chart. If you're not familiar with our development standards charts, this might look very, very complicated to you all. But we review these. This is one chart that's an example of the multifamily zoning districts within Tempe. The highlighted yellow areas are the new proposed densities and heights that coincide with the general plan. So that first line above there at the top, density, and the white line there, that's the existing standard densities that are allowed from R2, R3R, R3, R4, and R5 zoning. We are also proposing a new text amendment for a new zoning district, R6. I'll get in a little more detail on that category. But the density bonuses are based on the established general plan ranges, anywhere from increases from up to 25 dwellings per acre, up to 45, up to 65. And then we have a category of more than 65, which is in near our downtown or urban transportation corridor areas that would allow a density up to 80 dwelling units per acre. So if your site is an R4 and lands on a property that has that density designation established by the general plan, then you could achieve those increase in percentages of density. In some areas, you might be close to doubling the density. In some areas, you might be even tripling the density. We've also excluded some areas in the lower zoning district categories like R2 or R3R, where really wasn't appropriate to identify those, and most of the properties are not really applicable in most cases with where we've seen the general plan. So not to make some confusion of what that someone's thinking that we could take an R2 10 units per acre property and turn it into 80 was not the goal and objective of the process. Down on the lower portion of the chart is the height bonuses, and they're also within those same similar ranges of density increases up 26 to 45, up to 65, and then up to 90 could yield those additional heights to accommodate those additional densities that are being proposed in those areas. And then one area where R3, because it was maxed out at 30 feet, and in cases if they were to increase height by 30 feet, we are still requiring conformance to the building height step back that's required when it's a property that's adjacent to single family district or use. Next slide. This chart here shows the examples of, on the left is your commercial zoning district zonings, and on the right is your office industrial districts. If you may not know, you can actually today with the RO and CC, residential is allowed by right, but in areas like CSS and our PCC 1 and 2, our planned commercial shopping centers, you can actually seek a residential through a use permit process. We've identified those very similar general plan density ranges that could be eligible for this process, and also identified the commercial land use density category by identifying a maximum of 25 dwellings per acre, which is consistent with the highest ranges of those commercial allowed density ranges, but still require that use permit process. So the specific component, when they're still identified commercial, there still is a use permit public hearing process that's required to achieve that slight increase in density. Again, the height bonuses, again, are still commensurate with those ranges of density of 45, 65, and 80 dwellings per acre. And then in the industrial categories, where we're also introduced some new general plan, land use changes of mixed use industrial, mixed use industrial moderate to low to moderate, has some density ranges where we could see some mix of uses or new residential projects, where industrial, the underlying zoning does not allow residential by right. So typically you'd have to rezone the property to get more than the caretaker's residence on a property. In this case, you could see 100-fold, 25 new brand new dwelling units that of those 25 dwelling units per acre would have to yield a 25 to 75% range of dedicated affordable housing units. And then lastly, the parking standards, looking at a holistic approach of if you're in the overlay district and you're providing dedicated affordable housing, we're looking to provide some incentives that provide some parking reductions, and those reductions are focused on the studio to 3-bedroom units requiring only minimum of one space per unit. If you have a 4-bedroom or higher, the parking ratio gets incrementally higher with 0.5 space for additional bedroom. So those are proposed changes that would be eligible for reductions in this overlay district. Next slide. Do you want to describe the general
Sure.
plan map?
So as Ryan mentioned, the basis of what property would and wouldn't be eligible for a bonus program is to look at property in the city where what's allowed by the zoning and what the general plan projection for future density has a difference. And so what you're seeing on this map is the properties in the city where that's the case. So that difference can range anywhere from up to 25 dwelling units per acre, as we saw on the table, into those more projected urban areas where you can get up to 80 dwelling units per acre. Like Ryan was talking about with the commercial districts, those properties that are zoned commercial, that have commercial projections in our general plan, would still be eligible for a bonus program. So they're shown in that lightest blue, where they're indicated that they could get up to 25 units per acre with a use permit. And then the rest goes incrementally up from there. So for each of these properties, though, the exact bonus is going to be different. It's going to depend on what the underlying zoning allows, but this is kind of showing you the upper end of what they could be eligible for should they choose to opt into the bonus program. Can you move over these two?
Sure. Yeah.
So to give an idea too about what some of the outcomes might look like, we've run a couple scenarios to just provide a snapshot of what these might mean in practice. So for the first example, we're looking at an 8,000 square foot R2 lot. So right now in the R2 zoning, you would be allowed up to 10 dwelling units per acre. An 8,000 square foot lot is about 0.2 acres. So you could develop currently using your zoning rights 2 units on that property. In the case that that property is in an area where the general plan is projecting 25 dwelling units per acre, that would mean you could develop through the bonus program 5 units on that property, with 1 to 2 of those being designated as affordable depending on the range of affordability. So if they're going for the 80% AMI mark, it would be 2 units. If they're going for the low end, the 50% AMI, that would be just the 1 unit. On a little bit of a bigger scale for an R4 lot on 2 acres, they're currently allowed 25 units per acre. So by zoning it right, that would be 50 units shown there, where every circle is representing 5 units. And in a case of an R4 district being somewhere maybe close to downtown or close to ASU's campus, where our general plan is projecting urban densities, they would be eligible for a bonus of up to 80 dwelling units per acre. So with an increase from 25 units an acre to 80 units an acre, they would go from being allowed 50 units to being allowed 160 units. And because that difference between those two is, so great, 110, we see that the amount of units that would end up being designated affordable in that circumstance would range from 28 on the low end to 83 on the high end if they choose to designate it the higher range of affordability. For an example, on a commercial lot, similar to the one we just looked at, this is based on a 2-acre PCC1 lot. So allowed 15 units per acre currently with the use permit. It means they would get 30 units through that process. If they're on a parcel that's designated for 45 dwelling units per acre in our general plan, they could be allowed up to 90 units, with 15 to 45 of those being designated as affordable.
And we are trying to look at with those ranges of affordability, trying to incentivize the lower ranges as a goal. So we don't want the developer to kind of pick numbers and say, oh, this is the cheapest one, so that's the one I'm going to go for. If we can yield or get more units that are of the 50% or below AMI, we'll try to focus those efforts on those numbers there. And we're getting some feedback from our community services department on trying to focus on the lower ranges of numbers rather than the units that are 80% or above. So we may come back with some modified versions.
And then for the last one, an example in an industrial zone property. So as Brian mentioned, industrial zone properties do not currently have entitlement rights to develop for residential. But if, say, they were in an area in our general plan that's designated as mixed use industrial with allowance of up to 45 units per acre, for a 1-acre lot, that would mean they could do 45 units. And then with the range being 12 to 34 of those being designated as affordable, since the entire development of residential is considered the bonus, since the difference is the entire amount. And then an example where we kind of get into a little bit of the numbers. So this is going back to that R4 lot that's 2 acres in size, where they're allowed 50 by right and 90 through a bonus. So, comparing the amount of rent that the entire project would see for, the amount that people are paying for the full amount of units in the building, with the current zoning, you're looking at just over $1 million for a breakdown that's 31 bedrooms and 22 bedrooms based on those fair market rents for the previous year that we got from HUD. And so what I wanted to do in these 2 columns to the right are compare what the difference in the cost savings for the project is if they develop through a bonus program versus what it would look like for the project's profitability if they were to just rezone through standard avenues. So if they rezone through standard process and go up to 90 units, and retain them all at the fair market value. That comes in at 1.9 million. If they're opting into the bonus program, they get the same amount of units. However, some of them would be designated, for this example, we're looking at the 65% area median income. So that's 20 units being designated as affordable. And we have in this provision that they be split in as close to an equal fashion as the makeup of the units for the project in a whole. So you can see that 10 of those affordable units are going as 1 bedroom. The other 10 are going as 2 bedroom units. And then annually that comes out to 1.67 for the cost of all the units over the course of a year. So through the bonus program, that's helping save Tempe renters an annual $168,000, which also, this is information that is going to be useful for developers when looking at whether or not these processes are going to pencil out for their financing on the projects too. So we wanted to provide this to give a little bit more detailed information on what this looks like compared to standard rezoning processes, or what the current state of developability of the project of the property is.
So the new R6 zoning, this was a category that was contemplated in the prior general plan, and in general plan 2050, it aligns with our density ranges that we've adopted in the categories. Frankly, there was some property sites that had residential allowed density ranges within this category that did not require a mixed use designation. So it was even difficult for someone to request that type of zoning district without the mixed use that is typically needed today. So we're proposing this new R6 zoning as a code text amendment that would allow by right 45 dwellings per acre. There's no property that would receive this R6 zoning. You'd have to formally request it through the standard zoning change if someone wanted R6 through a zoning map amendment process with public hearings. But we wanted to include it as part of this process so that if there was an opportunity to yield higher densities within a site that we're looking to achieve R6 in urban areas, then there could be an opportunity to complement the general plan density ranges within those affordability levels. But still required to get the R6 zoning, you'd still need to do a zoning map amendment because it doesn't exist today anywhere. Next slide. So where we're at right now is we're at the tail end of the phase 1 draft engagement process that we had been preparing for close to a year now, probably. We were expected to wrap up the process and review outcomes with our public forum at a council meeting this coming week on February 12th. We have since pulled our agenda item there. We're looking to reschedule it probably a couple months later back, either April or May, to revisit the outcomes and information we provided there. Some other elements that are still ongoing is we have some tentative scheduled dates with developer stakeholders to kind of get really a test of, hey, can this work for you as a developer or you as a Gorman company, since you've done affordable housing projects, does this type of model, can it work for to your benefit? And so we really want to test it, see what works, see what doesn't, and provide that report feedback to council at a future hearing date. So those engagements, and we're working with ULI to set up a workshop involved with different stakeholders, and that'll be like in mid-March. So we hope to report back on that information to the public and to city council. So ultimately, there'll be a phase 2 process where we'll want to do another outreach and engagement of revisions and what we've heard and try to make the plan hopefully more supportable to the community, and then collect that research and then look for a future final phase. And if we get continued direction to continue moving forward, then we'll set a public hearing process for further outreach on a final draft ordinance process that would end up on city council for a final decision. No time commitment right now on that final phase because we are taking some more time on this initial phase to get that business and developer stakeholder outreach collected and shared with council. So at that time, we do have a webpage, and we did extend some additional time as requested by some of our public members, Shereen Lerner, who extended the timeline for the website with an additional week, and we're able to gather some more public input on the proposed changes in there. Wide variety of comments and opinions on there. We got a spectrum of those that like it, but feel like we haven't gone far enough. Those that don't like affordable housing or just don't want to see any changes. So we're trying to create a balanced approach as to, okay, where are the concerns, where are the type of concerns, and see if we can address those through future updates. With that, I'm glad to take any comments or input.
Brian, Jacob, thank you for that presentation. I hope there's not a test on all this because
God, no.
we're all going to fail. So, but a lot of interesting concepts within your concept. And I could see why taking a little more time and doing some testing would be beneficial. With that, members of the commission, anyone have questions for Ryan or Jacob?
I do. This is Christy Melcher.
Go ahead, Christine.
Hi. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand the beginning part because I kind of missed a little bit of it in the very beginning. The multifamily areas that you're talking about, on the map that you showed, most of those already have development. So are you talking about like redevelopment for these projects?
Commissioner Melcher, yes and no. So the idea behind this is that we're looking for places where our general plan is projecting that additional density. Many of those will be developed because a lot of land in Tempe is developed right now. It's not to say that
Vacancy.
Yeah, it's not to say that we're looking to further encourage redevelopment of developed spaces, but acknowledging that redevelopment in Tempe does happen. And what this program is looking to do is to provide an option for how that redevelopment looks. Because currently when property becomes attractive for redevelopment and they redo whatever is built there for something of a higher intensity, there's standard rezoning processes and those units end up being market rate. So we're trying to provide an option that would give potential development, a similar level of intensity through a process that's maybe a little bit more desirable for them. It's administrative rather than going through public hearings where you're paying for land use attorneys and other, professionals, and you have the uncertainty of the outcome of a public hearing process. And in return for, offering that development opportunity that looks a little easier, the city gets in return those affordable units. So not looking to promote redevelopment of those particular already built up sites, provide options for how it can happen in the future, because these things are currently going on. And we're just looking to try and fix, some of the issues that we're seeing with relation to affordable housing.
Okay,
And our goal, it's never to like focus on getting that maximum number there. This is just, we're looking to provide a tool in our toolbox to provide that option that if someone wanted to ask the city, say, hey, how can I commit to providing affordable housing? What offers or what incentives do you have that you could introduce affordable housing? Right now, we don't have any programs. So this is a way to get that into the process. We have our maps, our zoning maps, general plan maps. Zoning's typically always underdeveloped. No one's within the entire city has maximized their zoning rights, and no one within the entire city has maximized their general plan rights. It's a vision for the future, and we see some where the focus areas where there have been density increases with respect to downtown and focus on light rail areas is where the majority of those density increases have shown where someone could take the most advantage of this proposal.
Okay, so I have several questions, so it's not just that one question. Let me back up for just a second because I know you guys don't know me, but I have a real estate degree from ASU. I've got 33 years in real estate. I've also been in government affairs for real estate for decades. So this is kind of my area of expertise. And in my experience with working with developers, and I'm not saying all developers because we never want to say always, but I have experienced throughout the entire valley, I have experienced so many issues and so many examples of developers working with cities to get incentives for the developers. And the only person or the only entity that ever benefits is the developers, not the city and not the people who live in the city. So my concern with what you're saying, and maybe I misunderstood, is that if you're giving them the incentive that they don't have to go through the regular red tape, we'll call it, to go through this, then you're not giving, then the neighborhoods don't have a voice, right? They're not going to be involved in public meetings about this and that type of thing. They're just going to be able to have more density forced upon the people who live near these potential areas. Is that correct?
So in a high level, yes. But I'll have an explanation as to why the program is written the way that it is and why the bonus involves the removal of those standard zoning processes. As we were saying, the main point of a bonus program is to try and find some way that makes it more desirable. It's the incentive behind what we're getting, the city and the residents, which is the public benefit of affordable housing. If to opt into a bonus district required the public hearing processes, it would look and cost no different than just going through a standard rezoning,
Same process.
getting your density to whatever you're asking for through a rezoning process. So without the incentive of how the process operates, there's no difference to a developer than it would be to just go through standard avenues and we don't get affordable housing designated in the project.
Yeah.
So I understand the benefit to the developer. That 100% is understandable. But my reason why I'm asking is because in my experience, I see developers promise and they come into plans with cities and they discuss these items, and then the affordable housing never happens. It never comes to fruition. They create the projects and it's promised in the beginning, but that lasts, for a year. And I'm also not quite sure I understood if we're talking about just properties where these are going to be rentals, because you cannot control what happens in the fair market when it comes to residential resale. So unless you're talking about like the first program that was discussed, the Home for All or whatever that's called, where there's actually like something put into the deed that forces, the sale and how it's transferred, the deed is transferred. We can't control how that's sold. So is this just for rental properties?
Primarily, it was focused on the rental costs, but we also have the ability to build in a for sale product type that requires that those deed of sales be available for specific terms. We haven't laid out the program specifically with that, but the focus has been on the rental market ranges in there.
Okay, so my suggestion to you, because I know we're only here is like to listen and to learn what's going on here, but from my experience of 33 years in the real estate industry, this does not tend to work out well for the residents or for the potential renters or the potential homeowners that are looking. The developers make out very well, and whatever benefit that the city has been promised often is not, like I said, it does not come to fruition. So I would say, I would want to see what you guys are doing. And I also am gravely concerned about the fact that if you're going to do this and you're giving them a green light to get this extra zoning and density that is not normally allowed, that homeowners in that area are going to be gravely affected by that. And I don't think that is, to me, I don't think that that's a good idea for the city of Tempe. I am so much of an advocate for fair housing and for affordable housing, but I have seen the guise of programs like this, and especially incentives to developers, where it's supposed to be for affordable housing and it does not work, but the developers make off like bandits. So I would just like to know more about that process. And I don't think that it's fair for the general public that lives in homes that paid money and spent, the money that they've spent. I represent these people. So they spent all this money to buy a home, maybe paying 80% of their income to live in a place. And then now all of a sudden we're going to have this crazy, increased density in neighborhoods that they didn't buy that property in that situation. And you're going to do reduced parking for the developments. So now you're going to have all these people with all these cars. Where are we going to put them?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, and certainly we'll take those into consideration. I do want to just kind of preface that, this is not just a promise. This is not a negotiation. There are specific standards and obligations that the developer needs to meet, and there's specific obligations and outcomes that the developer receive. It's not being negotiated. So we can put in within the framework. If there's elements that the public doesn't like at it, they can be removed from it. But we're following the specific standards in their code. If you achieve A, then you will get B, and there's no little room to make modifications or changes. They have to comply with those regulations. We certainly recognize that as an initial program, if there's a opportunity to evaluate and see if the program is being successful, it's being utilized, or are we able to efficiently track and monitor these, there will have to be annual reports and updates back to the council to see its effectiveness. Today, these density numbers, we are seeing projects in these densities already. We are encouraging these development sites with these density sites today because this is the adopted Tempe General Plan 2050. And this is the goal and the effort to see those densities to help support Tempe's growth in the targeted areas where we have alternate modes of transportation and density supported, primarily in our downtown area.
So did you mention what would happen with the parking? I'm sorry, I asked that at the end, so it was a
Oh.
long.
Yeah, I think we'll probably need to do maybe some parking analysis of the differences between this proposed density numbers and the parking reductions that are provided in the transportation overlay district versus our downtown parking standards. This is somewhere in between TOD and the downtown parking standards. We've got some other cities like Phoenix that does have some affordable housing incentive parking reductions that have provided projects with lower numbers. We've been even getting suggestions for those that says don't require any parking, but that is not something that we're looking to do. Just trying to find the right spectrum of where can we help relax some of the standards while we're not intensifying the parking demand for the project sites.
Okay, and I think this is my last question, but you said in your report that you were giving us that it would provide affordable housing for 30 years, and I may have misunderstood this, but I thought you said that in order for that to be in compliance by these developers, that there would be self-reporting. It was very vague, or maybe I just misunderstood as to how we're going to keep track of that.
Correct. Yes, there's a annual self-reporting requirement of the dedicated units. First, there's a contracting agreement. We identify the type of units, the ranges of the units. They're intended to be comparable to the types of unit products. So if they have, like, say, half of them are 2-bedroom units, the other half of are 1-bedroom units, then we intend to have that same percentage of affordability of 2s and 1-bedroom units within the dedicated units. They're required to provide evidence of the renters that are utilizing those units that are within the ranges standards required for affordability. We're also looking to set up a program where our housing services division can provide applicants to seek one of these developer eligible sites that could participate in them as a way to find a pre-eligibility for the units, but they're required to provide us these numbers and information on an annual basis. If they don't, then there's some enforcement process and requirements to come back and evaluate those projects. But we do have enforcement mechanisms tied into the proposed covenant requirements for the projects.
I apologize for interrupting. Sometimes when you're on a Zoom, you don't know when the person's finished speaking.
Sorry,
it's okay. And I see the back of your head, so I can't even see your mouth. So I apologize for that. I guess my concern would be, I would just really like more information on the reporting, because that's where I see it more than anything. It's like the first year, it looks great, and then it falls off, and the deal's done and the developer's off. They've already sold the property. They're not involved with the property anymore. They developed it and they moved on, and then they go do this again. So I just would like to see I'd like to see what the accountability is. And I'd also like to see what other projects or places this has worked where these developers did keep, track and literally make sure that it happens for 30 years, because that's a big task, especially for the developers I've seen and how I see how they do business. I don't see them being around in 30 years, trying to make sure that they keep this up and work, for the residents or the city of Tempe.
Sure, and that's certainly one aspect that we still need to do some more homework on and build a draft template for what the covenant might look like. And we're working with our housing services division to prepare one of those.
Christy, I'm going to hold you there and
That was fine. That was my last question.
let some others participate here a minute. Anybody else? Shereen.
Thank you for coming. I'd asked for your presentation. Could you go back to the, and thank you for creating that website. Is this presentation on the website?
This presentation, yes, it's the, well, an older version of it is.
Older version,
But the additions to this presentation from what is linked on our website is mainly the map. There are those example scenarios as well that are new, going through like what the bonuses look like. That's been added since the January meeting. But the presentation from that public meeting is available on the website.
Okay, that's great. That's what I'd hoped for, though. And I would suggest anybody who is interested in this, look out for these public meetings. I went in January, and that's why I asked for you to be here now, was because I thought it had relevance to our commission. Could you go back to the map that has the cultural resource areas in there, and maybe we could request that when your next public hearing is held, we get notified or something, because it was really helpful for me, and that was part of my concern, was some of that.
You want this map or the general plan map?
The one that there was a map that I think you had from the general plan that showed the cultural resource areas.
Yeah, this one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So the
because,
purple
and I know
area.
it's hard, because what would be great if we could put them side by side with what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for making the website. I appreciate that. My concerns, I have a lot of concerns, but related to the historic preservation, I guess I'll just reiterate what was said at that public hearing, and then Commissioner Melcher just mentioned the administrative hearings portion. That was loud and clear at that meeting, that people are very concerned about public hearings and not having a right to go to when there's a development like they do now. And I would really have you reconsider that. There are enough other incentives that you're giving developers where you don't need to bypass the public. I think that will be a big problem in the future. And I think when you get to neighborhoods, and that's part of why I wanted this map up, because when we look at the cultural resource area, which is in purple, and then the historic, one of my concerns is that the exemptions are historic preservation, local and national register designated, but there are, simply because the city of Tempe is behind in designating historic areas, there are other areas that should be excluded, that we have not yet done that designation. And part of what we were talking about, we were going to maybe talk about today, or maybe another time, is how can we be doing better at that, and doing outreach, and then trying to get some of those designated. And so I would like you to maybe work with our historic preservation officer on having him identify those areas that, should we be able to move forward on on designating some of them, those would be in areas that would get a little bit more concern before something can go on, because this is pretty limiting, and we know that there are other areas that are not listed on there that are historic. And I'm not talking about the 1970s buildings, homes, right? I'm talking about things that post World War II that have not been designated in those areas. I'm not talking about the lakes, for example, or anything, even though the people in the lakes might not like me saying I'm not talking about them, but
There's some unique architecture there.
yeah, yeah, the areas I mean. There are areas that go south of Broadway, between Broadway and Southern, that are now reaching that point of neighborhoods that were built for particular purposes that should be considered. And just because we're behind doesn't mean they shouldn't be factored into this. So I would ask that you consider that. I know that this is what's in the plan, but as you've mentioned, the plan will be adjusted as a result of this program. So with that adjustment, I think that there should be adjustments on terms of the historic designation areas as well, so that we already have problems in Maple Ash, for example, of high density going into that, which has now caused a problem of that neighborhood not having contiguity in terms of historic places. We don't want to be doing that all through these areas where somebody sells a couple of properties and they have an acre lot, which happens if you go into the university area, Heights area, or just south of the university. There's some places that may have an acre. If they sell that, now are you going to be able to put 6 or 8 properties on that as a result of this, by saying 2 of them will be affordable? So those are concerns that I have that relate to this commission in particular, that I'd like you to consider, and potentially our historic preservation officer, Dr. Lechner, could say, well, here are some additional areas that we should at least highlight for now that we're considering working toward trying to designate on a local level, maybe eventually national, but
And we could probably do an analysis of the historic eligible site areas and see how many or what percentage are within maybe areas that are currently exempted from the program. Like you might find a lot in the cultural resource areas. They might just be single family homes that are exempted. What percentage of those historic eligible properties are not included in these bonus areas? And we could report back to you all on that information.
that would be great. And just keeping in mind, I appreciate that. The eligible properties are a small number of what are eligible. It's simply, again, we're behind in terms of what we know.
Yeah.
I
I think that's why the cultural resource designations somewhat help in some of
Yeah,
those.
it'll help. And then I think what we could see would be those, and then we could say yes. And if you just go another half a mile here and a half a mile there, you've got the block, because within a neighborhood, if we go into the Creamery neighborhood, for example, it may not be all designated, even though it should be as part of it. And yes, there's infill. We all know, I'm not talking about those things, but that would be helpful if you could look at that. And then I'll just mention, and I know time-wise we want to move forward, but I will mention again, the administrative hearings issue, I think, is going to be a big issue. I appreciate the fact that you delayed your city council meeting. I think it would be helpful after you meet with the developers to actually have another public meeting, because at that point, you're probably going to make some adjustments, and to hear from the public before you go to the city council would be helpful, because I know that at least the meeting I went to in January, there were lots of great ideas that were being thrown around. And I would assume you've taken some of those into account, because I've seen some adjustments in what you presented here. And I'm sure the developers are going to give you more input, and then the public should get their say again. And I'm sure that they will after the city council, but it might be helpful as you're putting this together for that. Let me just look really quickly at my notes. Okay, I guess I'll stop there. The only other thing that I made the comment last time when I was at that meeting is I still think that you're not giving enough towards affordable housing in terms of proportionality. I think that you're still giving the developers an awful lot for a small amount back. And I think if a developer can build 40 more units and only has to put in 5 of those as being affordable or 20% affordable, I don't think that's going to help overall the city. It'll be a small number that we'll be getting, but the developers will be getting a pretty good deal by not having to talk to the public, building another 40 units. I mean, that's a very nice deal, and that's just a limited piece that I understand of what you're talking about. So I still believe, and I think you heard that from people at that public hearing, people think there should be higher proportions towards affordability. And maybe you need to go back to the developers. I mean, I know you said you do, and hear from them. But I think if we're really going to make this a good bonus program, we need to really be increasing that amount of affordability as part of it. And then also making sure that our existing neighborhoods, especially the historic ones, that's part of our purview, are being protected. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, it's my turn.
Mr. Director.
And I'll keep it short. You talk about a contractual relationship between your office and the developer putting this project and bonuses together. In what form is that contract?
A covenant agreement that runs with the land for the property. So
And,
it's binding upon the property owners and successors in interest.
and enforced by whom?
Enforced by community development in association also with their community health services that assist in the monitoring of the unit counts.
And will that covenant have specific penalties for developer that decides, this isn't worth it?
Yes, we've been advised for our housing services that just relying on our zoning development code for standard misdemeanors would not be an impact I think the developer would love to pay $10,000 annual fines for just not providing the affordable housing. So we need to have guaranteed assurances. We even talked about potentially a bonding of a certain amount of dollars so that there's assurances that, you know, hey, this can be a takeaway, that they'll could lose that bonding money as a result of committing to the program.
Has the city attorney's office been involved with these on your thoughts so far?
Yeah, marginally right now. It's the concept is being vetted, but we haven't got into, you know, specific details or review. They've reviewed this draft concept and have provided some comments.
I agree with Shireen that unless there's some way to absolutely enforce the bonuses that you've given to encourage this affordable housing, and I mean, absolute legal.
It takes a city commitment, yeah, to be dedicate to ensuring that these are being self-reported. And if there's not a reporting coming in, there's accountability to make sure that that is done.
It's not just a covenant that says this developer's agreed to do this.
Mhm.
It's a covenant that he's also agreed that if he doesn't do this, these are going to be his
These are the
penalties.
penalties, yeah.
And he will not have the protection of law or legislature, which is where all this crap's coming from,
Right.
to protect him. Please do. I'm gonna get,
Just as an example, the parking structure over by Tempe Center for the Arts, they did not follow through with all the things that they said they were going to, and it's up. And it's there, and they're active. And so that's a good example, though, of if you don't, even if they didn't do it, now what? So I think the point is, from Chair Fackler, that there should be something written in that says, if you don't do it, the city takes control, or, you know, I don't know what you can put in there, but something that protects the city
it has
from
to
that.
be that strong,
Yeah.
that if you don't, we will.
Okay. In fact, we'll take more than just the affordable units. We'll take
Well,
all the bonus
we'll
units.
take ownership of those units and we'll do it ourselves. The other thing on the parking, you blew right through it, is the bonuses associated with your parking. Is that on the affordable units or all units?
We've contemplated looking at it holistically because it's going to be difficult to look at programming certain units having a reduction in parking and certain ones not.
I
So,
don't care about day-to-day usage.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the raw numbers.
yeah, I mean, it's a combination of seeing housing or parking demands reduce in high urban areas as a result of also it's typically, you know, affordable housing projects have even less parking requirements in those
What
areas.
kind of shared parking analysis
Yeah.
at a professional level is going to be required in order to give out those parking bonuses? I mean, you could give out a parking bonus of 40, 50, 60 easy units, parking units, and just create a disaster for the project and for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But I think that one, you need to take a deeper delve into that. Because
Mhm.
that's one that is, as I understand, as it relates to this, the legislature hasn't told you that you have to do this parking wise.
Right.
And I'm always one that if there's not a law prohibiting it, then do what you know is best for the community, not what's necessarily best for a developer. That Christie's right. Developer's going to be around for 18 months, maybe 4 years, and he's gone. And that's why all the legal enforceability of this has got to come back to the city. We're essentially, although not directly, taking ownership of these affordable units. If we're not, we're just telling the opposition that doesn't want this, well, this is what we're going to do, but we don't really have a way to enforce it. And I think this, when you're giving this to the public and the city council, the city attorney's office has got to say, we've looked at this and these are the enforceable covenants that will be in this covenant, easement, development agreement, whatever it ends up being. Because I've worked with a lot of developers over a lot of years, and the percentage of them that I would say are concerned with affordable housing, less than 1%. But are they looking for density bonuses, any way to make more money, more units? Absolutely. But especially if they can catch the city looking the other way as far as a realistic way to enforce it, if he doesn't do what he's going to say, especially for a period of 30 years. Because what he's going to be signing on the line is not only him saying that he'll do that for 30 years, but everybody's going to sell that property to has got to say the same thing. And they've got to know that's what they're buying into, and that the
Sure.
city will enforce its rights. Anybody else?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure,
This is
go
Christine
ahead.
from Melcher again. I might have missed this, but can you explain to me again why these proposed areas are only north of the 60?
Jennifer, if you could go back to the map. They're not just north of the 60. This does extend to areas that are to the south. The way that the map is created is it's a selection of properties that their current zoning density allowance is less than what the general plan is projecting their residential density to be. So it's those properties that have a difference in what they're currently entitled and versus what the general plan is projecting that they would develop to.
Okay, so can you, I don't quite understand that. So like, for instance, like A5224 has the least amount of population in the entire city, but that's the area I see that has the least amount of potential properties. And so I'm not understanding why, if we have less density there and we're trying to increase density, why are those areas not being targeted for more density?
So our voters have decided that the general plan shouldn't have a higher projection in those southern property areas there that are more closely in line with the underlying zoning district density ranges. And that's why you see less projection or less density of the purple color ranges or even dark blue in those areas because of the general plan density designations and the underlying zoning districts that exist today. We did a unique thing with the general plan 2050 where we had 3 different maps proposed, and we had a moderate intense and a real intense and a least intense one. And there are opposing views on where we should put density and should we put it all throughout the city. And so we had some back and forth process about finding the right sweet spots. And so we had to have compromise on our overall projections of densities. And then we had to compromise in areas where people wanted to feel a little safe and not be impacted by those density ranges. And that's why you see some of those majority south of the 60 within that 25 dU per acre or less location.
Being one of those southern dwellers, I am encouraged that this kind of a tool, if properly developed and enforceable, would take care of some of these old neighborhood shopping centers that are basically just sitting there vacant, when a good portion of those could be put into affordable housing. I think those are prime areas for this to be used, but I'm still very, very cautious and not allowing the, let's say, developer with less scruples, not that any of them are unscrupulous, jump in there do his thing, make his money, and kiss the community goodbye, and let the next guy that owns it, who probably has zero knowledge that it was ever done, other than that there, on the title report, there's this document that he had never had any knowledge of, never agreed to, was probably never fully explained when he bought the property.
He's not doing
Those are
due
the
diligence then.
Those are the things I'm most concerned
Sure.
about, is the guy that's got the property 20 years from now, 10 years from now,
Right.
30 years from
We'll all be gone 20 years from now, right? Not.
Well, I definitely would be
Obviously.
gone, but there's going to be a whole lot of other people living around
Yeah.
these pockets, thinking that, well, there's a bunch of affordable units in it, and that's why I bought into this higher density. But if the city can't deliver that long-term, and I'm assuming that somewhere along the line that Community Services has brought their Section 8 housing program into this, and that these units would be properly introduced to those people when made available. But
Mhm.
I'm less than overwhelmed about what I'm seeing so far, just because there's so much doubt that anybody that reads this and anybody that might live next to one of these potential sites would have, and have zero input other than a few public meetings leading up to city council's approval. So be real careful as you move through this and move it into the public realm. Don't forget the community.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, guys. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to suggest, and that's all. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to suggest to the council that because Dr. Lechner is not here this evening, that I'd entertain the idea of postponing 7B and 7C to next month's meeting. It might make next month's meeting a little bit longer, but
Do we know if anybody was prepared to discuss any of those? Was Ryan?
Ryan has been briefed by Zach today, but it's not like he's worked with it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, and it just,
We could, if you, at your pleasure, we could either continue these items or have some brief conversations that might require putting it on the agenda item again for further updates. It's up to you.
I'm here running the meeting, so don't let me overpower you. Whatever you want.
Well, I think it makes the most sense to wait until Dr. Lechner's back, since he does have the nitty-gritty details that we had requested.
And he's the guy responsible for carrying them out.
Yep. So I make a motion that we postpone 7B and 7C until the next commission meeting.
I second that. This is Christy Melcher.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that's done deal. 7D is discussion of possible agenda items for the March 30th meeting. Does anybody have anything? I knew you were going to. I looked at Shreen, if you will, please.
Troublemaker over here. Yeah, I have well, some of them related to what's on our list for next time, so I guess I won't bring those up. I'd like to know what the status is of, I know our chair was going to check on this. We are no longer allowing people to speak at our meetings. And I have a real problem with that. We used to have public meeting, a public comment period. That's been removed from our agendas. And I have asked Dr. Lechner about it. And I asked our chair about it. And I would like to ask that either that goes on our agenda or something, because even the city council there's always hearings. And what I've been informed is that if it doesn't relate to an item on the agenda, therefore nobody can speak. But the city council allows open speech as well. And so I really have a problem with that being excluded from our agendas, that we don't allow public speaking. So maybe, I don't know if that needs to be on the agenda, but it's a point of concern that I guess, and maybe it has to go on the next agenda and we can have an explanation, or we can just add it right back to the agenda for the future and not worry about it, which would be my preference as part of it.
Is there a history associated with this, Ryan, as to why it's not in here?
I believe the intent was just to put more in line with some of the other boards and commissions, that when you've got a public hearing item, then that's when there's an opportunity to speak on those items. But study session items are typically
Is it
for.
currently right now,
Board of
the
Commission.
only group is the city council that allows for it? Open public,
They have a dedicated section for at the beginning and at the end of their agendas. I'm not aware of, or other like DRC or Board of Adjustment, they don't have any separate public agenda topics other than the items that are presented, which are typically public hearing items.
And I've been on other boards and commissions that have that allowed, and I recognize the difference of this commission, but we're excluding people by not having that on here. And if the city council can include people, even though it's not listed, there's no reason that our commission can't. So I don't know if others on the commission have an opinion, but.
I agree 100%, Shereen.
Chair Jones. I did ask Chair Jones as well on the same topic. So she was going to bring that.
so add that to the agenda for next
Okay,
week,
will
or
do.
next month.
Or can we just change the agenda and include it? Do we have to make it an agenda item for discussion? Or can-
Yeah, in order to put
Okay.
something back
Okay.
that's not on there, it's got to be agenda or we can't say anything about it, so.
Was it an agenda item being removed?
No, it's not that it was removed for this meeting. It was removed apparently some time ago. That's why I asked Ryan what the history of it is.
Yeah, I agree. I was just wondering why, if it was removed without an agenda item, I was just wondering why we need it to be an agenda item. If we can't just, if it's like administrative, why can't it just be added back on?
I guess that'll be part of your research, Ryan. is
And we
to
can
find
discuss
out.
that internally too. We can just administratively put it back on as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I would also like to say that the Historic Preservation Foundation would also not be able to speak if it wasn't a part of the agenda, correct?
That's correct. I mean, unless they're speaking to a specific item. And then they've got to go through the process. Well, our friend
These are-
here in the audience is
Yeah.
very familiar with the process.
Or
He comes-
every month.
Scribbles his name on a card and gets his position in line. But, yeah, I mean, we could put this on the agenda for discussion next month. And let's figure out, number one, are we supposed to be doing it for city council discussions? And if we're not, then why? But if saying nobody knows, well, let's put it back or work towards putting it back. And what's going to be the procedures that go into that?
And my thought is, though, if Ryan finds out that it's just administrative and they can just add it back, it doesn't need to be on our agenda. It can just be added back, correct?
I'd like to hear.
And there might be some desires for some refinements of it. So I think it's worthy of a
Yeah.
agenda,
Okay, so my only concern is
whether we
that
put it back on.
that's another month that we don't allow people to speak.
No, I'm saying we'll look into both the administrative process of putting it back on as well
Okay.
as agendize the discussion.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want to keep extending how many
Sure.
months people are not allowed to talk.
Well, I know one thing that can do, the chair And the historic preservation officer could put basically anything on the agenda they want to. So Ryan's gonna back, talk to Zach, said, what happened to it?
Okay, great, thank you.
And Zach says, hell, I don't know what happened to it. Let's put it back. And then it'll be on the agenda for next month. and
Thank you.
We'll say, yep. And we're off to the races.
And I have one announcement. Can I make that?
Boy, I tell you,
I know.
cutting into my time. Yes,
Well, I'll see if anybody else has any agenda items and then I'll.
yeah, let's finish up 7D here. Any other discussion or possible discussion of possible future agenda items for the March 30th meeting? Anybody else?
Yes, not necessarily for 30th, but maybe next meeting. Do we have March meeting or we
Yeah.
don't? Just with the council? We don't have our own.
We would say March,
Yes, it's a late March meeting with council. I believe it's 30th.
yeah,
Okay, actually, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to
so
be with the
there's-
council, but
So March
What if-
11th is the regular
Our
HRC
regular
meeting.
meeting.
we have
March
regular
11th.
one. Can I ask
Sure.
for that? Actually, I did ask Chair Jones about it. I can't articulate very well, but the state Arizona state statute banned existence of like an entity between the administrative and council maybe. So basically like a DRC,
hearing officers.
yes, has been banned or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
asking what the statute implication on this commission, like
Right.
we used, okay.
I can actually answer that.
Okay.
We had a presentation on it in the past. It's House Bill 2447 that requires that all site plan, design review processes, including subdivision plats, be administrative review and administrative decisions. So we can no longer have a design review body at public meetings or hearings, or even city council taking actions on those items. It's kind of like the direction that a lot of these programs have been going is as everything going administrative now as of January 1 this year. But we did get confirmation and a clarifying update in that House bill that they did exempt the Historic Preservation Commission from historic designated properties that have chosen to participate basically in that process of basically you guys do design review for historic designated properties as part of your process. So that process is still protected.
Gee, something's actually still sacred. Did I say that? I'm sorry. My mic was off, I'm sure.
Hi, Kathleen Lamp. I would be interested, not necessarily for our next meeting, but I would be interested in another update on the Mill Avenue Bridge and if those armrests were an effective graffiti deterrent.
And you'd like to see that on the March 11th meeting?
I mean, not necessarily, because I realize that may require some data gathering, but in a future meeting, I would like an update.
Makes sense. Ryan? Got that?
Duly noted.
Anything else that somebody would like to discuss, primarily for the March 11th meeting, but also the March 30th meeting, joint meeting?
So we were supposed to get a copy of the draft of the study for the cemetery, and we haven't received that. If that's available, can that be sent to us prior to the March meeting? Since it's on our discussion, I think it was going to be on our agenda.
I think we did get it.
Did we get it? And I just missed it? Has everybody seen the bond? Well, we were going to there was a draft plan for the cemetery but maybe I missed the email.
Chair, Commissioner Lerner, we can certainly follow up with getting a copy to you all as soon as one's available. We don't need to wait to the next meeting agenda.
Okay, that would, yeah, because I know it was on our list for next time, so it would be helpful to have
Yeah.
that. And if I missed it, I apologize.
I don't remember seeing it either. Can you send that to me as well, Christy Melcher?
We'll send it to the entire commission members.
Okay, thank you. I might have misunderstood. Thanks.
And I assume that the historic core one is not ready yet.
No, and we do have future meeting schedules that they'll come back to us with some draft proposals.
Okay, thank you. Can I do my quick announcement?
Just
Yeah.
clarify too, I haven't gotten any feedback on if there's any discussion items requested for the March 30th. We're going to be working with the city clerk and mayor office to set that joint meeting agenda. So if you have any requests, we can bring it to the table.
Well, it's interesting because basically what we were looking for was to have a meeting between the commission and the foundation. And
Which is
that's been pushed
occurring
to
later.
April or something like that. We were looking for actually this month. But we didn't ask for a meeting with the city council. We responded to this being set up. So it really wasn't our agenda. In fact, we didn't even have an agenda for the foundation. It was more of a sit down once and discuss whatever everybody wanted to discuss. Now, Rob, can you come forward, please?
And I'll just say, I'm very happy we're meeting with the council. I don't want that removed.
No, I'm not.
Please don't insist.
I'm not suggesting we are. Did you get anywhere with Zach on an agenda for the joint meeting between the commission and foundation?
Not yet. He did clarify that there was going to be an April meeting, and that was pretty much the extent.
And I'm not absolutely sure what the topic of discussion is for the March 30th meeting with the city council. I've not seen an agenda.
Well,
Now, that doesn't mean that Zach and Mariah haven't already seen something, but
and I think that the tenor of that discussion has been around, let's talk about the urban core map, the urban historic core plan process.
and obviously with the city council and us there, it's a public meeting, right?
Yes,
But there's no public hearing or anything like that.
correct.
So people who would want to come, I could think of a bunch, and listen to what's going on there and be able to participate would be participating under the city council's rules of public comment, right?
There is an agenda item for public comment, then yes, that will be available. But
No,
it's,
I'm talking about the city council's normal agenda
Yeah.
has a call to the audience.
I'll
on
remind you,
any
this is
side.
not a normal agenda. This is a special meeting, a joint meeting
So
between
special meeting they.
council and Historic Preservation Commission that's to be held at the Tempe History Museum.
Okay, well, I guess we better see an agenda for the 30th meeting, no later than the agenda on the 11th.
Yeah.
So we can respond to that as to whether or not there's any other topics we might want to discuss. I agree, the most pressing thing is the core.
Sure.
But I did not know what the meeting was about.
And I'll affirm too, I think we did get requests from the council, from the HBC Commission about having a joint meeting with council, in addition to having joint meetings and annual meetings with the foundation as well.
Okay. Well, I guess the priority in those meetings.
It just happened to be what was available that we could find
got
to land
flipped. I
council
guess that's
before
what's
the end of the fiscal
confusing
year.
me, is that we wanted to have
You wanted to get them
discussion
online first.
with the foundation to have essentially a common front, making sure that all of our issues were getting addressed by staff and the consultant before everything gets to the council. I guess we're going to the council quicker. Okay, anybody else have something burning in their heart that they want to talk to the council about on March 30th? If not, we'll talk about that at our next meeting. And I'll close the discussion on 7D. And now, Shireen, it's your time for
I
announcements.
was trying to do it while Rob was still standing there because he'd be better at it than I would.
He's not supposed to be participating.
So I can't ask him like you did? All right, what I'll mention, and then he can always, I'm going to ask him to come up and add anything I haven't said. But tomorrow night,
I'll allow it.
thank you. Tomorrow night, starting at 11 p.m., the World War II barracks are going to be moved to the Arizona Heritage Center. So if you're interested, they're going to be along Rio Salado Parkway. And it'll probably be an all-night affair. So if you want to see the barracks moving, it's a great opportunity. I'm not saying I'm going to be there, but Rob will, I'm sure. Anyway, we're really, really grateful to the Arizona Heritage Center for having a place to put them and hope that they can be preserved. This is really a jewel for Tempe to have. And so we're hopeful for the future. I'm going to ask Rob Moore to tell if there's anything to add to what I said.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. And it's an exciting time. It's been 20 years in the making, and it's neat that like you said, the Arizona Heritage Center sees the value and has the commitment to move forward. It's not easy, so the fact that they find this to be a critical component of their future exhibitions is pretty cool. So one clarification, it's actually being moved to an interim space before and that's low key because we're trying to keep it under the radar. Did a nice job thankfully the city supported us for 20 years and did a nice job hiding out at the Public Works facility, amazingly, right? And so now we have to keep a low profile where the interim place is. But yeah, we're really excited that the Arizona Heritage Center sees this as a valuable asset to their collection. So, and you're all invited. Yeah, it starts at 11, and I've talked with the mover. Darlene Justice has spearheaded this, and she's carried so much weight. She calls this her albatross, and she's done so much work to move this forward. But it should take 2 hours to make its way about a little under 4 miles to the new location on Rio Salado. So if you'd like to be part of that parade in any form, please feel welcome to attend. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for your solicited comments. Chair doesn't have anything because she's not here. Staff updates?
No updates other than just quick comment that the Walker House continues to get it restored for occupancy for a future retail tenant. We did discover that within the building, you see the brick exterior of the building actually has adobe within those walls as well. So we did discover a crack within that adobe. I think we were able to cost assess it, and we're looking to get it repaired. But it's interesting; those walls are not only just brick, but they have adobe that it's not attached to one another.
Wow.
So pretty interesting how they designed it.
Anything else, Ryan?
Nope.
With that, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you. City attorney has any problems with on the site.